Hello, everybody. It's Tom from the Ketogenic Fasting Project and Autistic Carnivores and the Ketogenic Fasting Project podcast. So, anyways, I hope you guys like my high-tech signage here. I decided to add that. I'm trying to make everything a little easier and faster. So I made myself a cool little sign for my cool little microphone stand that I made out of scraps. So anyways, I'm also still working on carnivoreinfo.com, which is on top of the little sign there. I put a lot of the links to different resources on that website so anybody can get to it. Save myself a little time trying to remember to go back and put all this stuff in the show notes and stuff like that. And also, it's just on the regular internet, so you don't have to be a Facebook member or anything like that. You can just go to carnivoreinfo.com, click on the different subjects, and check out the links, videos, studies, whatever you want. Other podcasts will be on there, Facebook groups, you name it. So, anyways, today's video is about dairy. I've read a lot about dairy. Dairy is very controversial, apparently. So I thought it couldn't hurt to talk about it again. I think I did a video about dairy quite some time ago. But the carnivore diet is primarily eat meat, drink water. I mean, that's the philosophy. So you gotta wonder, does that include dairy or not? And what do people mean by dairy? I love when people's language is a little different. It's just people, you say meat and people immediately think, not all people, some people immediately think you're only talking about red meat. You're talking about, which means beef to them. So if you say eat meat, they think you're talking about steak. And I don't really make that connection. I consider all animal flesh meat. I consider fish meat. I consider chicken meat. I consider tasty ducks meat. I consider eggs are basically meat. I don't see why not. Some people might call eggs dairy, whatever. So, anyways, this is the theme of what I do these days is about the carnivore diet, because that's the diet I'm on. I'm actually doing the PKD diet right now, which is paleo ketogenic diet is really just carnivore diet. It's just carnivore diet that deliberately includes certain organ meats, and for the purpose of healing autoimmune diseases. Anyways, I don't think you get any points for being a purist. Sorry, notifications decide to pop up all of a sudden. It's going to be a problem. But I should have put the headphones on. Darn it. Holy cow. I don't think there's any points for being a purist. Some people describe this diet as being animal-based, which, obviously is going to include dairy and eggs and stuff like that. Pickled pig's feet, of course. Who could live without that? But I don't think you get any brownie points for being a purist. I really, for me, this is about results. I would think for most people, this is about results. Are you trying to, be a super athlete, break a world record like Zach Bitter and Sean Baker or something? Or are you trying to heal up some psoriasis? Or are you trying to lose a few pounds or whatever? Really, it's about results. How good do you feel? Maybe you got a goal to get your A1C down or something. So I look at it and go, if you eat a little bit of plant-based food and you feel just as good and you perform just as well, then whatever. It's your business, right? So when it comes to dairy, there's all this weird controversy, and I think, like a lot of things, dairy's just got to be individualized. There's no two ways about it, So, we're all born to drink breast milk, right? So when we're born, we produce an enzyme to help break down the lactose. It's an enzyme called lactase, and Of course, you can buy an over-the-counter supplement if that's an issue for you, because most adults, I think, in the world, oh yeah, look at the beautiful psoriasis there on my arm. Um, most adults, I think it's something, depends on whose numbers you read, but somewhere around 2/3 of the world loses its ability to properly digest lactose as an adult. So, but not all dairy products have enough lactose in it to create a problem for people. So that's when people just, I see people say, oh, don't eat any dairy because it's bad. Well, lots of people can eat dairy and it's just fine. And in a lot of cases, maybe it's not perfect, but it's better than the alternative, right? I mean, I don't drink milk. When I was a kid, we drank, low-fat milk, and I don't think that's a good idea, but I'm sure plenty of people drink whole milk, and it's great. And in fact, if it was, I'll probably get some raw whole milk, and give it a try, because I'd like to try it out. I like to experiment with stuff, but that's probably a lot better than drinking like 2% or whatever I was raised on. I mean, when I was a kid, everybody, well, not everybody, but it seemed like everybody got Cheerios with skim milk and maybe some bananas on that, strawberries in season or something like that, and we thought we were eating healthy, but it's really just sugar on top of sugar, because when you take the fat out of milk, it actually increases the ratio of things like lactose, and lactose is actually a sugar. So you're putting sugary milk on top of grain-based cereal, and then you put some fruit on top of that, and what do you have for breakfast? You got mostly sugar with another kind of sugar and then another kind of sugar. And I think that's a big part of the reason why we're at where we are, health-wise, is not just the United States, not just the West, but the whole freaking planet. This isn't just a Western diet anymore. It's not just the European diet that used to be attributed to. This is a problem. Now, eating grain is better than starving, but we've gotten past that point where we can't produce enough food. The problem with people who go hungry is that the food doesn't get to them, which is certainly an issue we could talk about. But anyways, back onto the carnivore subject. I don't think dairy I don't think dairy is the big demon it's made out to be. I think it just isn't understood very well. When McCarranson did his famous book called Studies in Deficiencies, he looked at massive populations in India, and the people that ate the most animal fat, which were I believe the people in the north, they had the lowest heart disease, they lived the longest, they were the healthiest, and so on and so forth. And a lot of their animal protein and animal fat came from dairy products like butter and milk. They tended to drink a lot of cow's milk, as I recall, and eat a lot of sheep and goat and stuff like that. And they were healthier. And he followed all that up with all kinds of animal studies and whatnot. So you can get that book. I suggest getting through it. It's pretty fascinating, both from a historical standpoint and from learning about all the stuff we already knew that we forgot, so that we could learn the wrong stuff. Right? So dairy also tends to be affordable. I mean, butter's a relatively inexpensive food and a good source of fat. Milk, like whole milk, and raw milk's getting to be more and more available. I know in California, I think it's actually, they got some laws passed so you can buy raw milk, and I know in some states you can buy it, but it's marked not for human consumption. And then in other places still, they put something in it to make it too bitter to drink, but you can use it for a facial, or you could soak your feet in it, or whatever the hell they're going to do with it. But I think they're starting to come around with that and realize that raw milk is nutritious, especially for people who tolerate it well. So as I mentioned, skim milk tends to actually have higher sugar levels, so that's probably a little less than ideal. There's a whole issue of just the pasteurizing of milk. Pasteurizing milk changes the milk. I mean, it's generally heated up to kill bacteria. and then it's homogenized to help keep the fats from separating. So when you buy raw milk, a lot of people have never seen it, but it actually the fat tends to float to the top. So one of the good things about modern dairy is actually they clean the machinery that they use at the dairies, the tanks for storage and mixing and all that stuff. They actually clean it with an iodine-based disinfectant. So we actually get a fair amount of iodine from dairy, which iodine is actually one of those substances in nature that can be rare and people can easily get deficiencies in. But if you're eating dairy, you're less likely to have those deficiencies. Now, if you ate raw milk straight out of the cow, obviously, it's not going through any machinery that's been cleaned with iodine. But if you're eating commercial dairy, especially in the United States, you probably will get some extra iodine from it. Now, when you look at some of the other problems with dairy, one of the concerns that's out there is with a protein called casein A1. And casein A1 has been suspected in actually causing type 1 diabetes in children. The theory is something to the effect that when you have leaky gut syndrome, this protein gets into the bloodstream, the body makes antibodies, and those antibodies that it makes to combat the invader that it thinks the casein A1 is actually attacks the pancreas and lowers the pancreas's ability to produce insulin, and thus causing the type 1 diabetes. I guess it actually attacks something in the beta cells. So I don't know. I'm not sure how solid the science is on. I've read this many times. But casein A1 only comes from Holstein cows. Holstein cows are those black and white kind of puzzle piece looking cows. They're very common. They're very common because they produce a lot of milk and they tend to be lower in fat. So it only made sense in a world that was fat phobic. We use these lower fat, high producing cows. But there is milk from other cows available. In fact, the casein A2, which if you go out there and look, you can find information on A2, casein A2. So that's a consideration. Some people seem to have an allergy to the casein A1. Obviously, if it can trigger autoimmune issues, it's going to be a concern for some people. So my point is that there's multiple reasons why dairy could cause a problem for somebody, but in most cases there's a way around it. And I think a lot of people just don't even have issues with dairy. So like I said, butter is a good source of fat. I know a lot of people talk about ghee, but you can make ghee yourself. It's really just clarified butter. You're separating it out, separating the solids from the fat, really just giving out the protein. So if there's something in the milk protein or the butter fat that's bothering you, it might be the protein, and you can skim that out. You can buy ghee. It's just very expensive, but maybe you got plenty of money or you don't eat that much of it, so it doesn't really matter. So that's an option. And there's heavy whipping cream. Heavy whipping cream is generally anywhere from about 35% to 40% pure butter fat or milk fat. Based on my personal research, I'm not an expert. I'm just, I read labels and try and keep track of this stuff. A heavy whipping cream typically has very little lactose in it. It doesn't necessarily have much protein in it at all. It's basically fat and water. They do put some preservatives in it like carrageen, but it's usually less than 2%. I've had plenty of heavy whipping cream in the past. I've recently cut down my fat intake for an experiment, and I'm eating leaner cuts of meat. But I have never had any problem with heavy whipping cream. And like I mentioned in the past, I make ice cream out of it. You want some good rich ice cream, just mix up some heavy whipping cream with some raw egg. And then if you want to put some, whatever, like vanilla extract and some unsweetened cocoa powder and, stuff like that in it, you can make some pretty amazing ice cream. You can get yourself an ice cream maker. It's just like a a tub you put in the freezer and freeze it up, and then you put your mixture in there, and then it's got this motorized apparatus that sort of spins your concoction around till it starts setting up. So anyways, there's all kinds of great recipes. So you can have some amazing high fat ice cream. You can put some sweetener in it if you want, like if you like stevia, which I don't, or xylitol works pretty good. And I heard xylitol and erythritol mixed together is freaking amazing, but I haven't tried it because I only make ice cream probably once every 3 or 4 months or something like that, so I don't eat it every day. But maybe you want to do it for your birthday, or maybe you just want to do it in the summer when it's hot. That's up to you. I say it's carnivore. Screw people who say it's not. And then there's cheese. There's all kinds of different cheeses. People get into soft cheeses, hard cheeses, white cheeses, yellow cheeses, whatever. If you eat cheese and you feel good, have some cheese. I eat a little bit of cheese compared to what I used to eat. I consider cheese a seasoning. I call it cheesening. And if I had my druthers, I'd probably be eating gammelose. But for some reason, gammelose is mysteriously rare in the United States. I've tried to order it from Norway, but those people over there, they couldn't care less if you're trying to order something from them. I never get a response out of them. So anyways, I don't know. The Vikings pretty much conquered every shoreline and made it all the way to North America eating cheese. So maybe, the cheeses like gammelose are really rich in all kinds of active microbes that pretty much gross everybody else out. But maybe it's the fountain of youth. Maybe it's how you conquer the world. I'm not sure. But I don't think people should be as afraid of dairy. I think you should just be willing to individualize it, figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, because it can be a very affordable, sustainable part of your nutrition. Some people have plenty of access to things like raw milk. I know people, I go visit relatives. They live near Amish people. You can buy all the raw milk and fresh eggs you want all day long for really good prices compared to what we pay. I live in Southern California, where super exotic, organic eggs from free range chickens and this and that and the other thing, man, they're like $12 a dozen wholesale. It's like they can't make enough of these things. But you go to the Midwest, and that stuff's easily accessible. So anyways, don't be too afraid of dairy unless you got an allergy or something, and don't give in to things like people saying, "Oh, stay away from dairy. Dairy is evil," because it's not all the same. And part of this is just understanding, and part of it is individualizing, so you understand, and maybe that's a good step in the direction of not feeling like you're really giving up so much. When you can include things like this. I know lots of people love cheese. I like, when I eat food that's maybe a little too lean or a little too overpowering, whatever, cream cheese is a great way to like tame something down. So, you want to add in a little fat, maybe you're eating some really lean steak or something, and you're like, yeah, I need a little more fat. Throw a little cream cheese in there. Maybe it's a little sour cream or something. So I think a lot of people have a pretty good idea whether they tolerate these foods already. So don't be afraid. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I hope this helps somebody out there. I really do this to get the message out there. I know there's a story going around about the person who was on My 600 Pound Life, who's only 29 years old and died. And I gotta wonder, did that person even know about the low carb universe or the carnivore diet or ketogenic diet or any of those? I mean, did they know? Did they get to see a video where somebody was talking about how it really turned their health around, or how good they feel? And maybe that's all some people need, is just to know, look, you could just eat a pile of steaks. Check out Chris Donahue. He eats an amazing amount of meat, and he doesn't work out a lot. I talked to him a little bit. He does some exercising, and he's made tremendous gains. I don't know how much he lost, but well over 100 pounds already. And he really enjoys the carnivore diet. So Anyways, thanks again for watching. Please subscribe. Please send these links around to people who might benefit. Just give people a chance to see if this diet could help them. All right, take care and feel better.